He was clutching a silk blanket, staring at the ceiling while his baby screamed so loud it drowned out even the storm outside. The plane pressed hard against the wind, making the windows rattle. Everyone in first class felt the tension. Flight attendants whispered in corners, trading helpless glances, hoping somehow the noise would fade. But it only drew sharper when Evan, the billionaire with a face seen in every tech magazine, shook his head in defeat. He rocked the tiny bundle, sweat beading along his temples, eyes begging his son to quiet down. People judged silently. You'd think money could buy peace, as if dollars solved this kind of panic. Then, with everyone looking away or sucking in deep breaths, a poor teenage boy in the back stood up. No fuss, no drama, he just walked toward the front, past rows of tired, angry people. Conversation stopped. Evan looked up, the world falling silent for the first time in hours. Could anyone fix the chaos? Have you ever witnessed an act of courage in a place no one expects? Who will step up when nobody else does? What would you have done? Comment below if you've ever felt powerless watching someone struggle. A brief touch, quick but electric, brushed Evan's wrist as the woman across the aisle handed him a bottle of cold water. The thanks he gave her was wordless but loaded, her gaze lingering just a moment too long. The boy stopped, locking eyes with Evan. For 1 second, the baby hushed. Why? A billionaire who ruled boardrooms, helpless in the clouds, until a stranger dared to cross the aisle nobody else would. The teen's hands shook, his suitcase shoes scuffed from travel. Jalen was his name, you could see courage writ small on his worn backpack. Every step measured, every muscle tight. But out came a gentle hum, barely a melody at first, then growing, low and true until the wild cry quieted. The baby fell utterly still, a small fist flexing at the new sound. The lights overhead flickered, tossing shadows along the cabin, passengers pressing in with hope and disbelief. Evan watched, pride stinging against the shame that comes from helplessness. Nannies, doctors, all his money, none of it had worked, but this boy. His voice, steady but trembling, somehow crossed the distance. A flight attendant brushed past, cinnamon curls catching the soft light. Her hand lingered on Jalen's shoulder, soft fingers curling for a second that made him blush. The woman in row 5 watched Evan, breathless, cheeks flushed. Ever been wrong about a person who changed your whole world in a flash? Jalen began to hum a lullaby he learned in a church back home. The baby's breath slowed. But just then, Jalen's face changed, tension shot through his jaw. He saw something no one else did. High above America, a billionaire realized he didn't know his own child, but a stranger did. Jalen bent lower, listening closely to the baby's uneven breathing. His mother had taught him these warning signs. He'd survived nights holding his baby sister, nights that never ended well. With a shaky voice edged by deep memories, he whispered to Evan, "You need to listen. Your boy, something's not right. Not just tired." His honesty landed like a blow. A flight attendant steadied Evan, her cool hand firm on his wrist. Passengers began to murmur, some hinting at lawsuits, others just scared. The tension between Evan and Jalen filled the air, worry, gratitude, something raw. Jalen pressed on, face flushed, not backing down. Would Evan trust this kid with everything? Without warning, the plane shuddered. The world turned red, oxygen masks fell. In the storm of panic, Jalen shouted instructions, not just to Evan, but to crew and strangers, his voice cutting through the fear. Evan could only grab one thing, his high-stakes laptop, or his son. The look in Jalen's dark eyes made it clear there was only one choice. What would you sacrifice for someone else's child? Have you ever faced love against ambition? When the turbulence stopped and quiet returned, Evan found Jalen next to him, their son sleeping at last. Something inside him shifted, nothing in his life would look the same. That night, two men changed as the Atlantic raged around them, their fates tangled in the darkness. Passengers whispered in new tones, sending soft nods Jalen's way instead of judgment. Evan watched Jalen out of the corner of his eye. This kid, this almost man, had done what no one else could. The sense of relief felt strange, relaxing Evan's shoulders for the first time all night. As Evan's son slept, the woman from row 5 approached with slow steps, her hand brushing Evan's as she returned the lost pacifier. Their eyes met, connection kindling, brief and quietly wild. Jalen, catching a smile from a young steward, couldn't help but blush, the wink more flustering than he'd expected. Evan turned stern, voice softer than he wished. He needed to know, how did Jalen recognize what dozens of others had missed? Jalen hesitated, pain glazing his expression. My sister, his story came halting, thick with loss. Passengers leaned in, but for once, no one interrupted. Ever meet someone who felt like fate, an answer when you were least ready for one? Suddenly, a text. Evan's wife. She wasn't getting better, not yet. His heart pounded guilt and longing, caught between the electric spark with the woman beside him and the fear eating him from Texas. They weren't supposed to reveal their true selves at 35,000 feet, but exhaustion stripped away all masks. Somewhere between Denver and Los Angeles, Evan and Jalen, still shadowed by adrenaline, ducked into the galley for privacy. With the world finally quiet, their defenses lowered. The flight attendant, pale in the half-light, pressed close to Jalen, brushing crumbs from his shirt a little too slowly, her glance lingering up at him. Evan watched from the doorway, unsure if his own jealousy was for the touch, or the comfort. Evan finally let frustration leak into honesty. I don't know what I'm doing, he said, voice cracked open. Without her here, my wife, I'm afraid. Jalen nodded. Sometimes it feels like you're holding up the whole world. If I don't win this shot in El Dada, I go back to nothing. Their stories bled together, loneliness and hope flickering between them like the dim bulbs overhead. Who do you become when nobody's watching? Does pain make us honest, or just tired? Ever had a conversation that pushed your life in a new direction? From above, the intercom buzzed. The words were sharp, medical emergency on board. The cabin tensed as a ripple of fear spread. In the moments when everything could fall apart, who do you trust when the lights go out? It started with a flicker, cabin lights winking to black, alarms crying out, passengers sitting up fast. A sharp voice came over the intercom. A kid in coach slumped sideways. Fear pressed in as flight attendants scrambled down the aisle, the whole cabin tense and scared. Jalen moved first, weaving through startled passengers. He called for space and calm, his voice cutting through the panic. Evan followed, his own voice shocked with urgency. Together, they knelt by the sick child. Evan used his phone's flashlight, shaking as he tried to recall everything his fancy doctors had ever told him. Jalen's hands were steadier, his focus laser-tight. The air turned sticky, the sounds from the front of the plane a dull roar. When the flight attendant threw a kit at Evan, her hands trembled but rested on his shoulder, comfort and a promise wrapped into a single, urgent squeeze. Jalen met her eyes, pulse pounding as they worked side by side, every brush of their arms reminding both how easy it is to feel alive in crisis. Evan barked questions to the crew, snapping at authority, trying to control. Jalen calmed the child, talking, humming, never showing panic. For a flash, it felt like they could lose everything. Would you let go of control to save someone you care about? Has fear ever made you reach for someone you least expected? The emergency settled, child stable, crew grateful, relief loosening everyone's grip. But new panic came fast. Evan's phone buzzed. His company wasn't just threatened, a rival had gone public. Shares tanking, lawyers calling. Adrenaline faded, but the next fight was already beginning. Some promises don't need words, just a look held too long, in the quiet after a storm. Back in their seats, exhaustion pressed heavy on both men. The cabin lights were dim again, baby sleeping, the worst of the chaos over for now. For the first time, passengers watched Evan and Jalen with respect, their nerves replaced by something like admiration. Evan's focus drifted to the passenger from row 5. She was soft-spoken, but tonight her eyes were bright and lingered on Evan's face. In passing, she offered her hand, steady, honest, a handshake that lasted a second longer than needed. Jalen, half smiling, tossed a gentle wink to the young flight attendant before settling in. Evan, finally seeing his own walls, reached out first. His apology was quiet, but Jalen heard it, a mumbled thank you for things he couldn't put into words. The two men didn't talk about heroics or how the night had changed both of them. They just sat in peace, trusting that sometimes, after a storm, sharing silence is enough. Have you ever had to prove yourself to someone who doubted you? Did it change how you saw yourself? As engines quieted to a steady hum, the pilot's voice broke in. Weather ahead was rough, the plane would have to land in Denver. Both men looked forward, neither knowing if they'd see the ones they cared about again that night. New city, same demons, and nothing would get easier. Nothing lays people bare like an airport after midnight, when plans shatter and truth comes out. Denver's airport buzzed with stranded travelers clustered in small groups, faces drawn and anxious. Evan cradled his sleepy son in the cold fluorescent glow, while Jalen pushed their bags through the terminal, looking for a quiet spot far from chaos. Coffee steamed in paper cups, a flimsy comfort against the shock of changed plans. Evan and the woman from row 5 sat so close their knees knocked under the table, their hands brushing whenever one reached for sugar. Words came quietly, a bit about family, some about dreams. A different kind of tiredness set in, softening both, giving each permission to feel what the air steward's smile made Jalen feel, a little less alone. Jalen and the flight attendant found laughter in the glow of a vending machine, their shoulders touching as they shared a packet of chips, sparks of something dangerous in the easy dark. In moments like this, you see how an unexpected delay can change a day, or a life. Evan's phone vibrated almost non-stop. His business was under attack, threats piling up. He wanted to hide, to flee back to being unreachable. But when Jalen offered a choice, help others tonight or chase his own weary path, Evan forced himself to face the question, what really matters? Did an unexpected pause ever shake up your world and force you to look at what's truly important? Evan's wife called by video. Her voice was rough, but her questions sharp. What happened on that plane? Why does it feel like everything changed? Guilt and hope clashed in Evan's chest. He had lost some things, maybe. But he had found something, too. Sometimes the longest layovers are measured not in hours, but in decisions that can never be taken back. Morning came slow and tense. Jalen's phone kept flashing reminders, his future in LA was on the line, and time ticking cruelly close to his shot at a scholarship. Evan sat beside him, sun bundled up, as the empty airport filled with distant voices and restless dreams. Row 5 woman slipped beside Evan, her secrets spilling out before dawn. She whispered about a broken marriage, and how she still hoped for softness. Evan's hand moved without thinking, resting on her neck, a comfort that said more than anything words could hold. Across the hall, Jalen and the young attendant found a storeroom moment for themselves, a rushed, heated kiss, risk and dream in equal share, as if being caught made it all the sweeter. Evan's mind raced, his business, his family, the new bond with Jalen and the woman beside him. He fought shame over needing help, over not being perfect, and the sharp guilt of wanting something just for himself. Jalen struggled, loyalty and ambition pulling him hard. Would he risk his own chance just to help strangers longer? Overwhelmed, Evan looked Jalen in the eyes. Come to LA with me. Let's face it all together. It was the first offer that didn't feel like charity. Jalen weighed the risk, then nodded. New risks meant new beginnings, even if nothing was certain. Second chances taste sweeter under California sun, especially when regret still lingers in every shadow. By the time they landed, everything felt different, like the whole world was watching. Jalen prepped for his interview, hands shaking under the pressure, while Evan faced boardroom battles already raging before coffee was poured. A rooftop cocktail party brought all masks back out. Evan and the woman from row 5 slipped their hands beneath the crisp linen, letting fingertips roam where eyes couldn't follow, city lights sparkling above. Jalen, nerves barely contained, joined the flight attendant in the kitchen. Their dance started silly, collapsed into nervous laughter, then faded into the hush before a kiss. Suspicion was everywhere. Evan's rivals doubted Jalen's role in his life, competitors sneered about the past night's drama, and even those closest to Evan wondered if he could balance it all. Just as the party hit its stride, Evan's phone lit up again. His son was getting worse, right in the middle of the business presentation. Both men had minutes to decide what truly mattered. Each risked everything, again. Love teaches us lessons money never could, especially when the cost is risking it all in front of the world. The tension in the boardroom was so thick you could feel it before entering, every chair filled with people who thought they knew Evan. The meeting started strong, numbers rolling across the screen, but then chaos broke in, a call from the nanny that Evan's son was struggling to breathe, right there at the office door. Cameras flashed. Evan froze, shame and fear colliding in the glare. Jalen didn't hesitate. He slipped past rows of executives, knelt with gentle confidence beside the child and worked quickly, steady hands, clear voice, guiding everyone. Reporters whispered, cell phones hovered. Evan's world narrowed to his son, Jalen, and the drumbeat of hearts in the room. In the corridor after, row 5 woman cornered Evan. Glass doors cold against his back, her body close, their tension finally snapping, her kiss wild, fingers tangled in his shirt, nerves and relief mixing fast as thunder. Meanwhile in the ER, Jalen and the attendant sheltered beneath a hospital blanket, sharing soft promises in the hush, warmth blooming in whispers and gentle touches, before the nurse walked in, forcing them apart with a smile thick with knowing. Afterward, the questions came, would Evan thank Jalen openly? Would he risk his reputation for honesty? Supporters raged online, some calling them heroes, others doubting motives, every opinion louder than the last. The door opened, doctor standing tall, news shining in their eyes. Futures were about to turn. Sometimes the most important news slips out in the darkness, changing lives without warning, rewriting every plan. The baby's diagnosis was clear, treatable, but only because Jalen noticed what others missed. Gratitude flooded Evan, carving a new bond where only fear existed before. From Texas, Evan's wife listened to every word by shaky video call, her tears falling without shame. Evan found Jalen in the hallway, words failing. He didn't say thank you, he pressed a hand to Jalen's shoulder, a promise as real as any oath. The woman from row 5 waited by the elevators, heart pounding as Evan's eyes caught hers, the hunger between them needing no words. Jalen and the attendant ducked into a quiet nook, her lips warm on his neck, a dare lingering as they smiled in the soft dark. The world kept spinning. Reporters had gathered outside, hungry for headlines. Inside, real life was built on quiet trust, relief, and decisions yet to come. Phones buzzed, gone viral. Everyone wanted to know what happened on that flight. The biggest questions still hung in the air. Spotlights burn brightest on those least prepared, especially when the real story has never been told. The days after the flight became a storm. Media trucks outside, news stories everywhere, strangers online choosing sides. Jalen and Evan were offered money, interviews, deals to put their private pain on display. Evan wanted to hide, but the business world called. People wondered what it all meant, was this about family, or a PR move? At the same time, Jalen faced offers that could change his life, but didn't trust the attention. In quiet moments, Evan and the woman from row 5 slid away, driving the Pacific coast with eyes only for each other, letting the wind and sunset give them space to breathe. Jalen and the attendant, feeling bolder, slipped into the gym after hours, pressing close and making every minute matter. Can the gaze of strangers change the way you love or dream? Has fame ever come too close, reminding you what's real? Finally, Evan gave one big interview. He looked straight at the camera. Jalen didn't just save my son, he saved me. The story they shared was messy, open, and braver than the gossip. Only those who faced their greatest losses understand what true forgiveness means, even when love complicates everything. Evan flew to Texas, his chest tight, unsure if he could explain all that had shifted. His reunion with his wife burned slow, her eyes softening cautiously, her fingers tracing the lines of his face in relief and longing. At Jalen's scholarship ceremony in California, Evan stood in the back, clapping as hard as anyone. Jalen caught his gaze and nodded, respect, no more and no less. At the reception, Jalen's eyes met the attendants across the dance floor, and within moments they vanished for a secret in the stairwell, lips meeting, laughter echoing, promise made in every touch. Jalen was handed his scholarship by the dean. Evan's wife leaned forward. "I'd like to meet the boy who saved our family." Hearts full, the next chapter already calling. Some journeys end where new ones begin, when love, courage, and humility transform what once felt impossible. The Los Angeles party was full, open windows letting night breezes swirl among new friends and old rivals. Evan stood with his wife at his side, their child safe in her arms, a sense of realness finally settled into his chest. Hands met under tables, glances carried meaning, some things didn't need to be spoken. Jalen and the attendant slipped away to the garden, their laughter soft against the quiet, futures whispered in every promise made in the dark. At the heart of the crowd, Evan found Jalen, and in that handshake was a trust no deal could buy. If you could start fresh, what choice would you make? Has courage ever built something lasting in your life? As the party faded, Evan watched Jalen walk out into a bright future, each grateful for what the other gave. Sometimes, the bravest thing is to let yourself truly be seen.